Taylor, Darren Conrad. Oh, Kyle Anton's been okay lately. Rod Lorenz.
I don't know any of these sport compacts.
Where are you looking?
Sheridan.
You're already there?
Yeah, I
Let's
did.
Yeah,
see.
Jessup, it doesn't
Jake
take us too long.
Harmon.
Mason, are you in the Midwest mods already?
Yep.
Oh,
Same.
you guys, slow down. Come on.
I'm already
Okay.
done, Mason.
As I'm done.
What? Slow down. Hey, you guys.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Track Packers podcast for episode 18 of season 3. We're kind of back to a normal schedule now that we're all done with the Dakota Classic Modified Tour. We'll break a lot of that down, plus much more with myself, Mason, Mr. Jessup Pelkey, Mr. John Breckel, and the mystery woman in our broadcast today is Miss Becca Pelkey, and who knows how much of an appearance she will be making. How are you all doing, Jessup? How is your week gone?
It's been a fine week. Warm weather is usually lead to happy Beccas, and well, it's been a warm week, so we have a happy Becca.
A happy Becca makes a lot of people happy.
There's been no beanie in sight.
No beanie.
No, speaking of Miss Becca Pelkey, how are you doing?
I'm tired. I'm wilting as we speak. Woe is
She's
me.
like a flower. It's just wilting.
Not sure how I'm gonna try to power through this, but there's a good chance I might just start and park, and we'll see.
She's gonna start barking, Mason. She's a dog.
Park, start and park. No, Dakota Classic Modified Tour was really good. I don't think I'm tired because of that. I think I'm just tired because I'm pregnant. So
What?
enjoy this.
When did this happen?
I know.
John, how are you doing?
I am doing great. We're kind of getting close to the end of quarter end at work, so I'm still working through some stuff like Mason and I talked about last week. So we're getting close. The finish line is getting nearer as we reach that here for the accounting close stuff that we have at work. And besides that, I had a very nice weekend. Spent it at a couple of racetracks. So I was over at the Dacotah Speedway for the mod tour on Thursday. Fortunately, I didn't get out there until after the Conci race, so I saw the features. So that was fun. And then I worked on Saturday and went over to Jamestown to announce that night on Saturday night over in Jamestown and wanted to go to Underwood on Sunday, but unfortunately I had too much to do for work standpoint, so I didn't get over there on Sunday. But besides that, it's been a good start to the week, and I'm ready for more racing action this weekend.
Yep, I got on 4 nights of the tour this year, probably the most tour races I've gone on in forever, basically. And so that was fun to do, fun to take that in all as a fan and have no responsibilities. And then got another 3 nights on top of that for a nice full weekend. And so, yeah, now that July is kind of in full swing, it was really hot last week. And so now I'm kind of used to the 90-degree weather, but now it's 70s and 80s. It's like perfect temperature. So hopefully it stays that way for the rest of the month. And so, as always, we got to thank our presenting sponsor, Hitch Harness, and Mr. Tyler Hall out of Fertile, Minnesota. If you haven't heard of Hitch Harness, you be sure to check out hitchharness.com to check out all the products they have. Of course, the signature product is the single or double style Hitch Harness, which is perfectly storage for your receiver hitches in the back of the truck. Be sure to check out all the other products, including chassis dollies, pull bar brackets, even get some swag, whatever you would like to help support Hitch Harness and whatever gear you have. And so thank you, Tyler, as always, for the support on the podcast. So since it's been a little while since we've all been together for an episode, I didn't really know exactly what the lineup was going to be, so we kept it basically the same from the last full episode we had with Jessup on the pole, then myself, Becca, and then John, because I believe John was missing that episode when he was in Colorado and he tried to make a brief appearance. So
This is what you're gonna get, Mason.
now
Because last episode you got like 4 of these.
that's okay.
And this is going on John right now. I'm sorry. Stay in your lane.
See, this is what happens when we don't get together for like 2 or 3 episodes. There's chaos when we all finally get together. And so,
This is true. When it's all 4 of us together, it's just chaos.
well, why don't, before we get off the rails too much, let's actually start the episode and wave the green flag to officially start episode 18 of season 3 with who or what are we repping. And Jessup, since you're on the poll, you get to kick it off.
Well, I figured I should wear a shirt that I just recently acquired. Technically, this isn't the shirt I won for winning fantasy racing at Estevan, but it is the same design. It is the Dakota Classic Mod Tour shirt. Very nice, baby light blue, and kind of a different look to it. It's kind of neat, little different, and overall, I like it.
Yep, shout out to Blaine Durward for designing the new logo for the Dakota Classic Modified Tour. It looks really cool, and those shirts really stand out. Like you could see, like especially as the week went on and more tour races happened, saw more of those shirts in the pits and in the stands, and so definitely a very cool design.
And they sold out at many of the tracks along the tour. So if you didn't get a chance to purchase a t-shirt, either in the pits or at racetrack's novelty stand, you can actually purchase them online as well. But I believe they're going to close sales very soon. So don't wait. Purchase your Dakota Classic Modified Tour now if you haven't done so yet.
Now, I have a question.
Yes, Mason.
Woohoo!
For anyone that's like has any ins on like the Dakota Classic Modified Tour. So if you were to win a night like Jessup did in fantasy, how do you go acquiring that shirt that one would have won?
You would message the Dakota Classic Modified Tour on Facebook.
Okay, thank you.
And if anybody is looking for actual shirts still in stock, and I had announced this on Saturday, but since Jamestown rained out, they still have supply at the track. So there is quite a few still left in Jamestown.
So there you go. Extra incentive to head over to the Jamestown Speedway then too. Well, excellent shirt, Jessup. Way to kick off. Who or what are you repping? I'll go down to Miss Becca Pelkey. Who or what are you repping?
Oh, curses. All right. Well, Mason made me put clothes on for this. So hang on. Let me situate myself so I don't flash anyone inappropriately.
Yes, get adjusted, Becca.
Hang on.
She's got to situate herself.
Oh, I heard us situate.
Oh, oops.
So-
I didn't mean to say that. Okay. Let's see. Where should I
I mean, we'd have 2 flashes going on at the bottom portion of our screen. So, I mean, it would just.
And then if that were to happen, it would be black flag.
Okay,
Even
I'm not
though-
wearing pants at the moment, but I am wearing
Oh,
clothing.
geez.
So there's that.
Okay, we're good with your shirt then.
There we go. All right. This week I am repping Aaron Turnbull, the new owner of the Dakota Classic Modified Tour, along with Byron Victor. So I am repping the number 21 out of Estevan, Saskatchewan.
We can't see your face.
That's okay. I took a shower and I
That's good.
look as miserable as you feel most days, John.
So, well, no, I have the shine going on. It's fresh and new.
See, the hairs just look awful right now, and I'm not wearing makeup, and yeah.
My hair is terrible too.
I got a lecture before this episode, John. So, I mean, the fact that she's at least showing what she's repping, I mean, I'll consider that a win for today.
I would
What
agree.
she was rapping earlier, though.
I'm sure you would, Jessica.
I wasn't wearing any clothes earlier.
She was rapping herself.
Well, thank you, Becca, for showing us who or what you are repping. John Breckel, who or what are you repping?
Okay, so I am just like Jessup. I went mod tour route as well. So just a heads up, I have to thank the drivers and supporters out there for the podcast stuff because Jamestown had a meet and greet Saturday night, this past Saturday, for kids night, and I got a ton of t-shirts during that period of time. And I also got a ton of t-shirts at the Mod Tour events that I was at this past week too. So this is one of those shirts that I ended up getting. And this is the 28th annual Dakota Classic Modified Tour shirt. I did not have this one. I was looking back at my stash and I did not have it. So I ended up purchasing this one at Dacotah Speedway last week, Thursday. And I like the purple car on front. So I think it just makes the shirt kind of stand out a little bit more. And so this is the 28th annual. It was the 2017 season that the shirt came out. So history lesson time. Who won the mods and who won the stock cars back in 2016? And Becca gets to pick last.
Damn it.
Because she's got all the stuff in front of her.
I'll go Hunter Marriott for mods.
That one is right. For mods, yep. Becca's husband, Jessup, is right on that. And who won the stock cars?
I don't remember if Ricky Thornton Jr. was in a stock car that year.
Nope.
Alton Flory.
I'm pretty certain I know just off the top of my head.
It's okay, Becca. You can do it now because those two both got it wrong.
Elijah Stevenbergen.
Yes, Elijah won it by 2 points over Andrew Altenberg. If you guys remember him from Minnesota.
Oh, yes.
The 00 car.
Yep.
And then only 4 points back was Dalton. Matt Speckman was fourth in points, and he was only 5 points back. And Jordan Boyce was top 5 in points, only 6 points back. So the top 5 were basically 6 spots apart at the end of that tour for the stock cars that year. Very close in the stock car division that year during the Dakota Classic Modified Tour. And Becca, correct me if I'm wrong on this, but I'm pretty sure the 2017 year was when we had the TV crew come around and they followed, I think, what was it? Was it the Bash Brothers?
Nights?
And
Bash
was it Corey
Brothers,
Drip?
Corey Drips, Jason Walla, Hunter Marriott, and there was one other.
Yeah, there was one more. I can't think of the sixth one.
But the episodes are on YouTube, or some of them, not all of them, and they're fun. They're fun to look back on.
Yeah, that was 2017 because I think we still had close to 100 mods at the events back then.
Yes.
So yeah, so
very healthy car counts back then.
So yeah, so that was kind of fun to go back and kind of revisit. I was like, oh yeah, that's the year that they actually were doing all that jazz. So, but that's a shirt I'm repping.
Nice to acquire a shirt that you didn't have, and so get to fill out the collection a little bit more too. Awesome shirt. Well, I'll finish it out. I'm still keeping Mod Tour related for the shirt. I'm repping a Dirt Race Central Street Stock Tour hat, one of the new ones we have this year. The koozie is of Scott Racing. They both were driving super stocks at this time, but Brendan in the 18X drives a street stock now, and then the 71X, Travis Scott out of Glenwood, he races a super stock to this day. And the shirt is of number 19, J. Schmidt from Tama, Iowa, in the IMCA stock car. Got a really
Mason, you got this shirt.
I did, yes.
So what track did you get that at?
This shirt I got at Nodak.
Okay, so because Jessup and I went through the pits over at Underwood last week Friday when they had the Niffin Memorial race for the stock cars, and I went to Jay first because I was like, I gotta get a shirt because I saw those sitting there and I was like, these are way too nice to pass up. So Mason, we can wear it and be twinsies.
Exactly. Really nice guy to talk to, and he was really fast all week, just had terrible luck or was in the wrong place at the wrong time for most every single race on the tour. So I think towards the end of the week, he's like, I would love to come back up here next year or in future years. And so that's a good sign. So hopefully the bad luck didn't deter him from coming back on tour for a future season. So it was really great to meet him and great to see him racing all amongst everyone on the Dakota Classic Modified Tour. So that is who or what we're repping for episode 18 of season 3. We will move into the track pack report. And since John and I kind of got a good first half of the modified tour in for a recap, I want to go over to the Pelkeys since they weren't able to join us, and that was my fault on that one. Becca
never asked us.
I know that was my fault.
In our defense, Becca, you guys were really busy this past week, and we didn't want to try to fit in an episode with you guys when you're handling all the scoring, officiating stuff, mod tour stuff. We're like, you know what, Mason and I will do a sidebar episode and we can catch up with you guys this week.
Yeah, so how was your tour week? Because I know it was pretty busy for the both of you.
Well, it was pretty busy for the both of us.
Great recap.
Go ahead, Becca.
I love Mod Tour. It's my favorite week of the summer. I thought overall the tour went really well, especially under new ownership. And I don't think if I didn't say that it is under new ownership, most people probably wouldn't have known that because it just kind of picked up and carried on as it normally does. And yeah, it's super excited. Very consistent car counts from track to track and great racing all 5 nights. Such a bummer that Jamestown rained out, but overall, it was a great week of racing on the tour, and already looking forward to next year. There's a couple of things that I know Aaron and Byron are looking to improve upon, so it's just going to keep getting bigger and better, and keep with that just history and the prestige that it's always had these past 35 years. So super excited to see where those two take the mod tour, and yeah. Overall, it was a great week.
Excellent. And you weren't too stressed out with all the duties that you had to do?
No, no, no. I've been doing it for so long. I kind of know what to expect, and I was surprised how many scoring issues that we had along the way, especially at tracks where I wouldn't expect there to be scoring issues. I did a lot of hand scoring on the tour this year, and that definitely took me by surprise. But I'm no stranger to hand scoring, so it was quick to jump in and just do that when it was needed. So, but yeah, it wasn't too stressful. It wasn't, yeah. I know I'm pregnant, and it really wasn't an extra stress, or it wasn't extra work. It was just fun at the racetrack basically for 5 days. So super, yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, it's always fun to see you kind of go on tour and you get to hit all your favorite places to eat and food wise. It's always fun to kind of see how the tour week goes for you and Jessup both, because I know that's a very special week for both of you.
Mhm.
Yep.
What about you, Jessup?
Well, where did you guys leave off?
Well, we kind of touched on Southwest, but since neither of us were there, I figured that'd be a good
Well,
place for you to pick up.
it was a demo derby.
That's what I heard and saw.
A lot of
And I
cars
don't
got,
understand why.
unfortunately, a lot of cars got junked, not on purpose in a lot of cases, of wrong place, wrong time, kind of the hard dust in the sunlight type issues as well, and a lot of just weird deals where it kind of hindered the last night of mod tour. But overall, I mean, it wasn't terrible. The mod feature went pretty well. It was amazing to hear that throughout the whole week, all of the mod tour features for the modifieds, there were only 2 cautions. So that's a really astounding fact, I guess. Kind of tidbit. You don't see that too often, and at some tracks you can't even go through one feature without more than 2 cautions. So there's issues with that. Let's see. Stock cars, they were very aggressive. I think it 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 almost seemed like the more restarts they had, the worse each restart got, because everybody was trying to fight for each position so like desperately, and eventually we had a pretty big wreck on the front stretch where it took out a handful of drivers. It took out about half the field before the whole night was done. So that was kind of disappointing, but luckily everybody walked away for the most part on most of the wrecks. I know from what I saw, the one modified wreck, the one driver was shaken up a bit, but he did get out of his car, and that's a good sign. But hopefully, well, it was our sponsor, Issac. Hopefully, Isaac's doing well, and recovering nice and slowly. There's no real rush to get back from a serious injury, so hopefully he's doing all right.
Well, I did
Yeah,
actually. Oh, go ahead, Becca.
But
yeah, I was really surprised how many cars we wrecked in Dickinson because the track was actually very smooth, very racy. There was multiple lanes. Um, there was some dust issues from time to time throughout the night, but I was really surprised how many cars and how many cautions we had, especially in the stock cars. That really just took me by surprise. But I was talking to Sean Strand after championship night at the Dacotah Speedway, and I asked him because I was curious because this was something I thought about as we drove back from Dickinson to Mandan. I That car that Issac was racing was Sean Strand's old IMCA modified, and that's the modified chassis that Sean actually wrecked last year on the Dakota Classic Modified Tour. Took it down to West Union, Iowa, for Rage chassis is located, and Justin O'Brien fixed the car, and then Sean sold it to Issac. So Issac had nothing but bad luck the entire time on tour, usually getting caught up in other people's messes. And finally, as most people probably saw by watching IMCA TV, the car got destroyed in Dickinson. And so I was talking to Sean after the races in Mandan, and he goes, "Yeah, that car just was not made for the mod tour. It was jinxed from the get go." And so tough break for Issac, but most importantly, I'm super glad and relieved that he's okay because race cars can be rebuilt, or we can always buy new ones, right? But glad that Issac is okay, and thankfully it sounds like he already had a new car in the works anyways. So I don't think we'll have to wait too long to see Issac back behind the wheel. So
Yeah, and I actually saw a snap earlier this evening from Isaac showing the damage of the car that once he got it in the shop. And yeah, that car is toast.
yes.
Now, Marcus has a new car in the works too, right? I think he had a brand new chassis coming.
He's actually
I
on his way right now to get it.
Yes, I
Okay,
just saw that he's in Iowa.
West Union,
Home of Rage
because I think
chassis, I
his
think.
I think his
Rage.
plan was to try to get that ready for this week potentially. So if not for sure next week.
Well, they call Marcus the Iron Man because I think he'll just race. Like he loves racing. That's all he does in the summer, and he's a multi-time state champion in the IMCA classes. And so it wouldn't shock me to see him back out on track at some point this weekend. So that's just who Marcus is and how he's built. So yeah,
But real
so
recap real quick from Dickinson. Did you guys already talk about the winners on last week's episode?
not really, no. You can
Not really.
It was Cameron
Well,
Starry picking up his first Dakota Classic Modified Tour win in the IMCA Stock Cars, and then Ethan Brexma also picking up his very first Dakota Classic Modified Tour in the IMCA Modified, and both of their victories extended their points lead going into championship night. Ethan Brexma had a fairly large and healthy lead going into championship night at the Dacotah Speedway, whereas Cameron Starry, it was quite a tight points battle between him, Shelby Williams, and Rob Van Mill. So definitely made for an exciting stock car points battle going into championship night.
Yeah, and Ethan had finished second, I believe, two times on the tour before that and a third. So, I mean, he was due for a win up to that point.
Super consistent this year overall.
Definitely. Well, and then from there, we went to championship night at the Dakota Speedway for Dakota Classic Modified Tour, and pretty solid field in both the classes once again. And John, since you were able to take in the features, what were your takeaways from the night?
Yeah, so like I said, I never got to see any of the heats. I didn't get to see the consies at all either. So my first taste of racing action that night was truly the feature events because they were just finishing up the mod consies when I got to the racetrack. Um, no, stock cars, plain and green, and the stock car feature event. That one was kind of cool to watch them go basically, all the laps green, all 25 of them, and it was kind of an interesting race because they had redone the track beforehand. Track was in really good shape. The groove kind of started on the top and very much migrated to the bottom. And it was definitely a battle of front between one of the locals. So Marlon Seiler started on the pole. Shelby Williams was right there to his outside, starting second. Shelby and Marlon were side by side for the first couple laps. Shelby took control of the race and then had to kind of fend off Sean Strand. Sean was very strong in his stock car in that feature event throughout the night, and Sean finally got the lead after a couple lap battle with Shelby and kind of walked away. Sean looked really good in the stock car and got a win in front of his hometown crowd and it was a good night overall for that. And Shelby kind of dropped back a little bit. I don't know. I didn't hear anything afterwards because I wasn't able to make it into the pits after we got done too. But I kind of wonder if, and Becca, maybe you heard something or Jessup. I wonder if he was having like maybe even some like overheating issues because it looked like he didn't really have a lot of pull out of the turns, out of two or out of four as that feature went on because he was running second for quite a while and then dropped down to sixth. But yeah, so really good racing overall in your stock cars, and congratulations to them for going clean and green. I mean, that was a pretty impressive feat within your stock car division to see him go from like that. And for me, the interesting part to watch was I was watching the battle for the points championship because you basically had Rob Van Mill, Shelby Williams that were right there, and Starry was coming up through kind of towards the tail end of the pack. He started, I think, deeper, kind of mid packish. I think he started in row 6 or row 7. And we kind of had worked his way up because essentially there was about a 5-point, 5-position difference between those top 3 drivers in the points. So I was kind of watching that battle from about second to about 7th because Cameron was kind of working his way up. And then and Van Mill was kind of inching his way forward too. So yeah, so that was part. I actually was probably watching that more than I was watching Sean up front because by that time Sean had about a half a straightaway lead. So that battle was pretty good behind him.
I will
Yeah, and
say,
then mods came up. Oh, go ahead, Mason.
I was gonna say, it was really nice to see the stock cars go caution free because, well, after Dickinson and Southwest, but they had trouble all week. It seemed like getting things going. They had a lot of cautions throughout the week and a lot of wrecked stuff. So having a
Oh
nice
yeah,
clean race for the stock cars at the very end of the week was nice.
yeah, no, it was really nice. And mod based feature was kind of the same way. I mean, they had one caution in the middle of that feature event, kind of right towards the beginning of it. But yeah, it was very interesting to watch them slice and dice through lap traffic and like Becca had mentioned, I mean, the night before Ethan Bruxman got the win over at Southwest and he really looked good. The whole entire tour was your tour champion after the final night and was runner up over at Mandan on Thursday night and was tracking down Tom there towards the end. Kind of reminded me of the prelude to the tour event kind of up at Nodak to where Ethan kind of was just kind of slowly but surely reeling him in and just needed a couple more laps. And I feel like at Mandan it was probably that same story that if you had a couple more laps, I think he would have been right there on Tom Berry Jr.'s tail end. Because when Tom crossed the checkered flag, Ethan was only about 3-4 car lengths behind him, and he had definitely closed that gap down. Because at one point I was following live timing and scoring, he was over 2 seconds back. So he had definitely closed in quite a bit there towards the end. And Tim Ward looked good all night too. So he was right up there in the mix as well.
Yeah, so congratulations to the winners from Dacotah Speedway, both Tom Berry Jr. and Sean Strand. And then the champions, Cameron Starry in the stock cars and Ethan Broxma in the modifieds. So nice finish to the week for those two as well. John, did you want to add something?
Yeah, Becca, what was your thoughts on championship night? Because you were involved with the whole entire tour, and it's always nice to end it at home.
Yeah, Dakota Speedway was by far the smoothest and quickest night of the tour, just because you didn't see a whole lot of cautions in the heats, B mains, or features. So it was just a very quick, efficient night, and it allowed us to do all the pomp and circumstance that you expect with the mod tour. So you got to see the out of car driver intros. They modified the flags that you typically historically saw with the Dakota Classic Modified Tour, where it was just the front row, the first 4 cars who had flags, and so you got to see that, and it was great racing. But yeah, just it was a good way to end the tour, especially after a lot of the carnage we saw the first 4 days of the tour. So it was a good, quick, efficient, clean night of racing at the Dakota Speedway, which I think by night 5, the final night, I think a lot of drivers were hoping for, because it had been a chaotic week leading up to that.
Yeah, and what would you say, Jess, what would be your overall takeaway from the mod tour this year?
Um, well, I'll say I have never seen a more consistent race result besides Tom Berry Jr. Um, winning everything, and I guess Steve Arpin for the most part. But Ethan Broxma really impressed me with his overall ability to find the front. And to it wasn't like he just slowly worked his way to the front. It was he's going to get up there and he's going to challenge for the lead for a good majority of the races. Stock cars, that was kind of fun. You saw a lot of comers and goers as um, there was really no one real dominant driver. You would think Shelby Williams would be one of the big guys coming in, and he was up there for most of the time, but he wasn't really like the most dominant Shelby Williams we've seen on the tour. Then you had Austin Brands, who really surprised me. I didn't think he would be that dominant that early, and he hung around, but it just seemed like he started to fade away. And then with Cameron coming in, all of a sudden, at Dickinson taking the points lead over, that kind of caught me off guard because like he was always sniffing top 5, top 10, but it was never really like ingrained in my mind that he's got a real good chance until we left Dickinson, and I was like, okay, where did this guy come from? So overall, I mean, there was a lot of really good racing, and that goes for the majority of the tracks. Um, and then I think what you can really take away from this year is that there was for being in a year of a transition, you wouldn't have been able to tell for the most part that there was a transition. And that
I'd agree
means
with that.
it means it just went extremely smooth. And everyone who was in a position of some level of importance or necessity and played a role, they all did an amazing job.
Those
We
are
had
some,
sorry,
yeah.
wait. We had 81 mods race at least once on the tour, and we had 52 stock cars race at least once. And for the most part, I think it was Jim Stannard who said at the pit meeting in Mandan that over 40 cars raced or attempted every night. So we had a very good, healthy following for each stop along the tour, and um, yeah, excited to see how this grows and flourishes for next year.
Kind of to piggyback off Jessup and talking about Cameron Story, we did predictions the week before, and I'll be honest, I didn't know who Cameron Story was before he came on tour, which is kind
Mhm.
of fun about like the Dakota Classic Modified Tours. You get to see these drivers come in like probably before the first year that Shelby Williams came up, probably really didn't know who he was necessarily either. And so it's nice to kind of see drivers kind of make a name for themselves in a sense on the tour, and especially with Cameron. Besides the first night in Minot when he started on the pole, he always had to like pass a lot of cars in his feature
Yep.
race. He'd
Mhm.
he'd either draw the worst or he'd have to start mid pack or deeper and make his way towards the front. So that's a well-earned championship for the tour for Cameron Starry.
It really was like a situation of out of sight, out of mind.
Mhm.
Because when you're watching the features, you're like, oh, okay, the top three guys are having a really good battle. Meanwhile, here comes Cameron slowly working his way through the field through cautions or whatever means, or just doing a great job. And then at the end of the night, you look at the winners, and then all of a sudden you look further back, and it's not much further back, and you're like, oh, there's Cameron. Okay. Next night, same deal, watching the leaders. All of a sudden you look back, oh, that red and white car's back up near the front. That's interesting. And you look at the winners and top five, and you're like, oh, well, okay, now he's up there. And it was definitely interesting. I mean, for him to end at how he did, that was definitely something else.
John, did you have any final takeaways?
No, overall, I thought it was a good tour. I think Becca summed it up really well on some of that stuff too, and so did Jessup. Um, I was in the same boat as you guys. I was probably only going to be able to attend the first couple of nights of the tour, and then obviously Mandan at the end of the tour, just because of how work schedule falls for me. And I agree. I was extremely disappointed that the weather took out Jamestown on opening night. I always enjoy that night. I feel like, it's a great kickoff to the tour, and always provides a lot of action kind of to, buzz around the tour events. Nodak did a really good job though up in Minot to grab kind of that Saturday show and do like a prelude and kind of get the momentum going for the tour. And then Sunday started, we were up in Nodak for the Sunday night show. Enjoyed that, and then like I said, the end of the tour as well. I always just wish I could go on more of the mod tour each and every year. I'm just not able to because of work responsibilities, obviously. But besides that, overall, the new group did a great job on the tour. Kudos to them. Like Jessup said, it was very seamless. It seemed like as they were transitioning over. And I also give kudos to the mod tour crew as a whole because the shows this year were very efficient. They were run very quick. Heats were run quick. Consies were run quick, and features were run quick to where even weeknight shows were done at a reasonable time for fans to get home and everything else in that one too, and especially if they had to travel distances. So yeah, so overall, great job to them on the first year of the tour, and I can't wait to see what's going to happen here going forward.
Excellent. Yeah, definitely a very successful 35th annual this year, right?
35th. Yep.
Nice. Great transitional year, and you wouldn't have been able to tell. It's a great way to sum it up. So before we get into the recap, so that way Becca can go get some shut-eye, because I'm sure she's dragging at this point. Becca, what are your wins of the week before we lose you?
So my first win of the week goes to the Nodak Speedway because unfortunately Jamestown Speedway had to cancel opening night of the Dakota Classic Modified Tour. It literally just rained all day in Jamestown. It wasn't going to happen, and they made the call right away in the morning, which I think took a lot of people by surprise. But I'm glad they did because it allowed the Nodak Speedway to pick up the event because there were so many guys and cars in the area already who were ready to go and ready to race. So kudos to the Nodak Speedway because as someone who is very involved behind the scenes of a racetrack, I know how hard it is to get volunteers last minute to come and gather together to put a race together. Because it takes a lot of people in a lot of different areas that people probably wouldn't think of to come together and put a race together. And Nodak made it look very easy. And I also love to piggyback off that. A lot of their track sponsors and community sponsors came together and boosted the purse because that was going to be just a weekly night pay. And I love that so many people came together to make it happen in the first place, but then sponsors really pitched in and boosted the payouts to make it a tour. It wasn't part of the tour, it was unsanctioned, but it was a great way to start the tour before it officially started the next night at Nodak Speedway. So I think Tom Berry Jr. won $2,000 for his feature victory in the mods. And then it was Angel Munoz, easy for me to say apparently, who also picked up $1,000 to win in the IMCA stock cars. So kudos to all the folks that came together to make that race even possible. So that's awesome. So that's my first one of the week. Speaking of Angel Munoz, he's my second win of the week because Angel's been a huge supporter of the Dakota Classic Modified Tour for many, many years. Huge fan favorite in this area of the state as well. But he just hasn't found a victory lane on the Dakota Classic Modified Tour. And I know that impromptu race at Nodak did not count as part of the tour, but it's tour adjacent, tour related. And it was so good to see Angel find victory lane. Again, on this tour related race because he's been a front runner for many years. There's been many races that he's almost won. So it was so good just to finally see him find victory lane at the Nodak Speedway during that impromptu night before the tour started. So second win of the week goes to Angel Munoz. And then my third win of the week, I'm going to give it to all of the volunteers who came together to make Williston Basin Speedway Tour Night possible because when we got to the track, Jessup and I, the weather really played a factor in the track prep, and it really gave the track prep crew at the Williston Basin Speedway a huge curveball. And it took a lot of people to come together to make that race night happen. So there was a lot of determination to make that night possible. And it took a lot of people to come together and just make it happen. And so huge kudos to everyone who came together. And yeah, that is my third win of the week.
Yeah, the way that night started was kind of like, oh, what the hell is this going to turn out? But I would say it turned into some of the best feature races all week.
And yeah, they were very they came down to the wire, both feature races, and it was very exciting to watch. So definitely hats off to everyone who played a small part in making Williston Basin Speedway round 3 of the Dakota Classic Modified Tour possible.
Excellent set of wins from the week, Becca. Good job to you and Jessica both on a great week as well, because you guys did a lot of behind the scenes work that a lot of folks don't get to see, especially Jessup, who was running around catching redraw drivers, and then all of a sudden there may be a DQ, and then it's like, oh, you have to go get someone else.
Too, I should have got another one of the week. Thank you, Mason.
Not a problem.
Jessup made a lot of people's day when he would walk up to their trailers.
I will say, I think that job might be better than handing out checks. It really is, because in the case, no, I didn't work that hard. I thought I had a pretty good weekend, but there were other people who did way more than me. But if you look at it in some perspectives, I've handed out checks before, and you give the guys who didn't make it out of the B mains their checks, and they're like, "Oh, great, gas money." Ooh. And I get the frustration, and then the next night you give them another check, and they're like, "You again? Is there more zeros on this one?" I'm like, "I don't know. Did you make it out of the B main tonight or last night?" No. Well, then I guess not. But in this case, literally everyone's getting to draw and gets to go up in front, and they get their little moment in the sunshine. And I definitely made somebody's season this year. So yeah.
There you go.
You're welcome for that of the week, Jessup.
Yes, thank you, Becca.
All right, I'm signing off. Going to bed.
All righty, thank you, Becca. Let's do a quick reversion of the Track Pack Report post-mod tour, and it actually starts with Jessup and I, because we took in the Tri-County Fair down in Wishick. How was Wishick for you?
You guys went to Wishick.
It was fine. We had fun. We went to the fair. I didn't do any rides. I shot my best round of golf for the summer so far. I think I shot a 39. So Wishick's a pretty straightforward course. So if you don't get yourself into trouble, and you can chip it rather close to the pin and have decent putting, you're going to be okay. So I did very well.
I do have a question.
Yes.
And it's not related to the golf.
Oh.
It's related to the racetrack itself.
Yes.
So, Jessup,
yes.
How many times did you weigh yourself throughout the night?
Probably at least a dozen.
This was part of the night where I was like, I'm just letting things happen, and whatever I get on tape is on tape.
See, Mason took things really serious. And while Kayla and I also played very serious roles, and we were there to have fun. It's about the fair. The fair is fun. And remember, folks, everything is fair at the fair. So we just were out there having fun. And it's not our fault that Mason kept getting us in his video shots, and he looked pained every time he went by us, and we would wave and say, do something fun. At one point, I think we did the YMCA. So every time he would go by, we were like, Y. Then the next lap, and the next one, C. And the next one, A. And he's just like,
I can see him just like trying to march past, trying not to basically be noticeable.
Yeah, and I hate to break it to him, we are dead center in his camera.
Oh yeah, they are every single lap, and I'm like, well, I'm like, I'm not even gonna try to avoid this. Like, let's just let it happen, see what they come up with at this point.
And then during one of the cautions, like I think it was Hobby Stock or Legend. I think it was Legends, where we had the super ultimate showdown between the Rainmakers and Mr. Dakota Dirt fighting to keep the racing going for the weekend.
And that might have actually helped because
I think it worked. You're
we may have
welcome, North Dakota racers.
we may have found a solution to keep racing going throughout the state. Well, I'll quickly go through the results. So it was the second night of a doubleheader, and the two races for the Hobby Stock Mary Vetter Challenge. And so great that they were able to get their full night of races in. And so they crowned champion for that at the end of Friday night's racing action. And the Hobby Stocks were first on the track with Jeremy here in the E98 holding off a hard-charging E85 with Derek Appert. And from the previous night, where they were basically flipped in the running order, they ended up tied in points. And so the tiebreaker was for the Mary Vetter Challenge was who finished higher on night number 2, which that went to Jeremy Hare winning. So he was your winner of the Mary Vetter Hobby Stock Challenge. So big congrats out to him. The Midwest Modifieds took to the track on Friday night, and they had a field full of cars. 3 of them. So
Hey, that's a field.
that is a field.
It was full.
Yes. And 3 very stout drivers. Aaron Michael,
Yes.
Zach Reinke, and Tony Smith. All very good drivers. Zach Reinke, as Jessup would say on our Western run-up, got a broomy, winning both the heat and the feature. And Aaron was trying to stay with them, but he had to hold off with Tony Smith, who was all over him. So Zach Reinke kind of scurried away for the win on Friday in Wishick. These street stocks, Brian Hansen Jr. in the 9H held off the field for another feature win there. Mike Munn was second, and Chris Critter Ritter was third.
Chris the Critter Ritter.
Yeah, that's a tongue twister. I don't know what I was trying to do there.
I don't know.
And then the Legends they had a really good field of cars. 21 Legends showed up, and on Tri-County Speedway, that's a really good field and really fun to watch them all on the track. Austin Weiss looked to have that in hand until they were kind of going through lap traffic and made the wrong decision passing a car, and Preston took advantage and got in front of him with a few laps to go, and he got the win in front of Austin Weiss and Donovan Weiss. And shout out to Gus Jensen, 13th to 4th in the 87. So very good run for Gus the Bus Jensen. So that was your night at the Tri-County Speedway for their Tri-County Fair. So then Saturday, on to the Jamestown Speedway for their first race in nearly a month, which is very hard to believe, but kind of just the way the weather's been this year. John, what were your takeaways?
Mason, I'm going to pull a Jessup line. There were a lot of cars.
There were a lot of cars, yes.
So, yeah, no, Jamestown resumed with racing on the 13th on this past Saturday, and it was a warm day. It was hot. We'll put it that way. The humidity was definitely up there throughout the day. And by the time I got to the racetrack, because I worked until about 3 o'clock in the afternoon and then got there a little bit later than normal. But I got up there and it wasn't bad if you were in the wind. Like if you had a little bit of a breeze, it was okay. But if you were out of the breeze, like say for instance the grandstands, it was just like a still humid kind of heat. So it was a warm night overall. They had 114 cars in attendance. To start the night off, they went through and had a physical meet and greet down front. That was really cool, Mason, and they had a lot of drivers come up for that. Did a lot of hero cards. A lot of drivers were giving away T-shirts to the kids and to the fans, so that was really cool to see too. Some of them were giving away tattoos and other things that they had as part of their accessories. And then I think Mason Ryan Osa's group, were they giving away like Capri Suns, I think too?
Yeah, they had Capri Suns, and then Tanner Tice was another one I stopped by. He actually has sunglasses.
Okay.
Ooh.
See, yeah, that was pretty cool. See, I saw Tanner had sunglasses, had tattoos, had like wall stickers. So that was pretty cool. Tanner had a variety of stuff. So he had a lot with his 35 Midwest Modified overall, but no, and it was very interesting because with how warm it was, I was like, okay, I bet you the track might be kind of on the drier side tonight, with everything else, and it wasn't. It was definitely a pack-filled track that kind of slicked off as the night went on. But I have to give kudos to the Jamestown team. That was the best track I've seen over in Jamestown so far this year. And Mason, and there was racing all over it. They could run multiple grooves. There was not a hint of rubber in that track anywhere on Saturday. So that was a lot of fun to see that that Jamestown was extremely racy on Saturday night.
Yeah, that was like even like throughout the heats, you could kind of see like I was expecting to try and kind of dry out after the first couple classes just because it's sitting in like sunlight, but like it wasn't really drying out. And I'm like, all right, we got some moisture in the track, so this will be interesting. And there was like even before the races started, you saw like that strip of like extra moisture, and I'm like, that's gonna be there all night. And sure enough, it was. And so yeah, hats off to the track prep crew because to get moisture into the track on a hot day like that was definitely a great job. And you're right, I was in the pits for the first half of the night, felt great. The weather wasn't too bad. I got in the stands and there was no airflow whatsoever.
Yeah, let's back up here really quick. So Jessup, Mason got in the grandstands, right?
Yep.
Yeah, he comes up and he drops his stuff off by me in the announcer's tower. And then he looks at me, he's like, well, I'm not going to stand here. I'm going to go to my old spot. So he just abandoned me up in the tower and went over to the, the north side bleachers or the south side, I should say, bleachers, sorry, south side bleachers that didn't have the overhang in them. So he was standing over there all night. So yeah, but
If you weren't so miserable,
I had to take care of all of his stuff up in the tower that where he dropped all of his 15 backpacks and GoPros and drone and everything else. So
now, John, I know Mason's very needy like that, but if you weren't so miserable all the time, you, you would be more than just some guy to him.
this is very true. I mean, I could see it. It was probably, it was it was probably all that hotness that I had that was just, radiating off of me that, Mason could not handle it. So he had to get away from,
Well,
Mr.
if
Hot.
if there is any truth to that, I would say there's probably something radiating off of your forehead, causing maybe
It
some
was causing
small
the
infant
glare.
to burn by accident. It was the
Well, you know
glare.
what it was? It was probably the glare that was affecting his recording skills. So,
Oh, that
yeah,
see, John, that's not your fault.
yeah.
That's Mason and how he angles himself.
That
I
would
would
make
I would
sense because I actually did have a mistake in the bomber feature where I thought I hit record and it wasn't. And so then I have a 2.5 minute clip of after I press stop recording and it's pointed at this ground. And I'm like, oh, wow. All right. So I missed like the first 3 laps of the bomber aim, but thankfully we had 80 cautions where I was able to rectify that.
Yeah, let's
So,
go through the results of the night then.
would you
So,
say you were blinded by the light, Mason?
Probably. That was
yes,
probably out of anger when I told John I was leaving.
pretty much. Yeah. You know what? That's what he gets for leaving me up in the tower all by my lonesome. I mean, at least I had Stacy and Sarah there to keep myself company. So,
See, you were in good hands.
Why do I see Mason? Why do I see John sitting there announcing by himself with the little background music of "All by Myself" going on?
yes, the Celine
Just a
Dion
sad
song
looking
in the
John
background.
going all by myself. I just want my
It was just
friends.
radiating off of me.
Um,
But
oh
yeah.
yeah,
So slingshots were first, and it was a battle between Caden Davenport, who won over there on the 12th of June. And then also Jackson Caro and Caden threw a slide job on Jackson. That was kind of a fun little battle to see over in turns 1 and 2.
Yeah, that was a really
And
good
ended up
side job.
I know, right? Didn't even touch him or anything, just slid right up in front of him. And picked up the win and he went back to back from June 12th. So that part was pretty neat to see. And then they had 4 slingshots, so a little bit lower on the slingshot side. I think some of the slingshots were actually kind of damaged from back in June. I think motors and some other stuff. Because I know like recattling wasn't there and some of those guys. But then the hobby stocks came out and Mason they had 21. And how did that feature go?
Well, I couldn't tell you on the first 3 laps because I didn't don't remember what happened. But Joe Jacobson was up in the front row and behind him it was a 2-3 wide battle throughout the entire field. We had a lot of close side by side racing. I definitely like they just worked the track, so obviously there was plenty of moisture and it wasn't slimy by any means. They were pretty much hammered down the entire way, and so very good job by the track crew once again. Eric Bush, I think, was trying to track down Joe Jacobson, but I think he was too preoccupied with trying to keep like Asher Williams and Carly Horner, Travis Ettinger behind him that it just wouldn't allow him to get close to Joe Jacobson. So Joe Jacobson pretty much starting up front, pretty much had that race on cruise control, and he got a very emotional win. Asher Williams starting 8th did edge out Eric Bush at the line for 2nd. So great run for Asher, who's putting together a very nice season out in Jamestown, and overall definitely has been one of the most improved drivers from last year to this year already. And so very good race in the hobby stocks.
Yeah, one thing I have to mention too is that, and this was kind of the theme of the night in the features, I feel like, um, there was a lot of cautions in the features. Just across the board, there was quite a few cautions. But the biggest thing was is that it seems like every feature had a caution with 2 laps to go.
Yep.
2 laps to go, there was a caution. And there was at least, I would say, half the features had that happen. It's like, okay, guys, seriously. So now it just sets up for a 2 lap shootout with each feature. So yeah, so that part was very interesting to see too. But the one thing on here too that I have to mention, and I kind of mentioned it to you guys here throughout the night, and Mason was there too. But we had 3 hobby stock heat races, and 2 of those 3 hobby stock heat races were won by Our Lady drivers. So Leanne Christensen beat Riker Vetter and Kelly Horner by 0.007 at the line in hobby stock heat race number 2. And then Carly Horner held off Joe Jacobson to win hobby stock heat race number 3. So the ladies were kind of beating up on the guys a little bit on Saturday, and that was kind of cool to see because we had a lot of cheering that came out of the grandstand when both those 2 drivers crossed the line for their heat wins.
Yeah, very good heat racing. I especially remember that heat race 2 finish because that was a really good race. Well, and
And
then
then
Midwest,
Legends.
or I would say we're
Sorry,
Midwest mods.
Midwest mods. We'll do
I was
Midwest
saying
mods next. Yep. So
Midwest
Midwest
mods
mods for next.
Yeah, they kind of turned into like an enduro.
Oh my gosh, it was. We started 18 Midwest modifieds, or 17, sorry. We started 17 Midwest modifieds, and there was 7 on the track when we finished.
Yeah,
So
it
they
wasn't
were
like it
under
was too many big wrecks. It was just kind of like,
weird stuff. Like you'd be running up front for I'm gonna use maybe Aaron Michael as an example. Aaron was battling up front in about that 3rd spot and loops it going into 1 and 2, and that was actually one of the bigger wrecks and took out a couple cars there. But yeah, so just wrecks up front with spinouts and other things were just kind of interesting on that race as a whole a little bit. But yeah,
yeah,
so
and definitely helped being out front, which Zach Ranke, who started outside row number 1, was out front and fought all the chaos. Held off 2 hard chargers with Jared Klein and Jaron Wibstead, who are kind of switching positions back and forth throughout the race. And so congratulations to Zach Ranke on getting another feature win in front of Jared Klein, who held off Jaron Wibstead for 2nd in the Midwest mods. And then we move on to Legends, which we move on to sprint cars.
sprint cars. Yep. The Red River Sprint Car Series was in Jamestown for their 2nd appearance since basically that series got to inception. They ran their first appearance last year in June, and now they ran this time around in July. And track was really tacked up for them, and they went clean and green for all 15 laps. And it was Andy Pake who held off Ty Wilkie, and those 2 drivers have been very strong runners in that series over the past couple of years. And it was very interesting because Ty closed in to about a half a second advantage at one point, but Andy was in a backup car too, because Andy actually wrecked his primary car just Thursday night essentially, kind of wrecked it over there at the Norman County Speedway in Ada. And so put this backup car together and ran it on Saturday and looked really good in the feature event with it and held off Ty Wilkie. We had 7 cars total. I know I talked to Mike Speaker and he was a little disappointed too because he expected a few more, but I know Donnie's nieces, they were both planning on being there. They had trailer problems trying to get to the track, and encountered a couple of flat tires and were unable to make it to the track on time. And they were coming from Jackson, so they were in Jackson Motor Complex the night before and couldn't make it over to the track. So that was kind of disappointing because I was excited to see both sisters there, super strong runners over there as well. But no, so overall, just a good field of cars still, though, good racing, and it was nice to see sprint cars were kind of booking it around the Jamestown Speedway.
Yeah, they look really fast around Jamestown for sure. And now we move on to the Legends. Very strong field of 29 cars. They started all of them, and it was very like a who's who of Legends in the state of North Dakota because you have drivers from Bismarck, Mandan area. You have drivers from out west or out east in Fargo, and then of course your Jamestown regulars. And so, excellent field. Racing was awesome. They were 2 or 3 wide throughout the entirety of that race, interrupted by a bunch of cautions. It was just like, oh man, just like if we had like green flag racing the entire way, that would have been almost one of the races of the year, I think. Because you had like Colin Compson, you had Donovan Weiss, Preston Martin, the Madlers, Ty Wilkie, Cody Mackar, just to name just a handful. And they are all kind of duking it out just up at the front of the field. And so it was a battle between Cody Mackar and Colin Compson. They were kind of side by side and exchanging lead a few times early on. Then through a series of cautions, Colin kind of maintained control, and then Donovan Weiss kind of emerged to try to track him down. But Colin was pretty consistent up front. It was going to take a big mistake for for Donovan to capitalize on it. But so Colin Compson won the NX Legend feature. Donovan Weiss was second, and Ty Wilkie in third. And so very, very good race in the Legends. Right, John?
Oh yeah, no, I would agree. I agree with Mason. I was so disappointed by the cautions because they were three wide throughout the field majority of that race, and they would just get going for like a lap or two, and all of a sudden another caution, and it's like there goes all the momentum that they were just building up. So yep, so no, it was a really good battle up front and a really good battle throughout the field, and I have to give kudos to the crew on Preston Martin because Preston and Michael King got together, and that was actually the first caution in the feature event, and Preston lost his front bumper. So went to the pits, was in the work zone, got his laps, and they went through and restarted that race. They had another caution before they completed a lap, and Preston's crew continued working on that car and got a new bumper on it. He restarted back in, I think at that time it was 27th or 26th, because there was a couple cars that had dropped out, and drove himself back up to sixth on a track that was, very much 3-4 wide racing for the Legends, and got himself back up there. So kudos to his crew because that could have been a big point swing night for him too if he wouldn't have got back out just with the field of cars that were there.
Absolutely. And then we move on in the street stocks. Nice field of 18 cars showed up. That was one of the cleaner races. I think they only had 2 cautions in that race, and so
it was pretty clean.
Yep, pretty clean race. Casey Usadis, who's been on kind of a hot streak as of late over in Jamestown. It seems like when he shows up, he got control of that race, and then it was kind of another battle with the chaos behind them. They were racing 2-3 wide as well, running multiple grooves. But I think the preferred groove was up top, but you had some guys that were able to roll the bottom pretty well. They had a caution with just a few laps to go. Dustin Erickson got one more shot to try to reel in Casey, which I think Dustin was a little quicker, but another instance of would have taken a mistake by Casey to kind of let Dustin get around. So Casey Usadis with the straight stock feature win, and Dustin Erickson in second. Had a couple hard chargers, including Joe Didi 12th to 4th, Chris Ritter 13th to 5th, and Spencer Johnson 16th to 7th. So a lot of passing in the street stocks.
And both Joe and Chris were actually using the bottom in that feature event, so they were making their time through the bottom part of the track during that feature event, where a lot of drivers had started migrating up to the high side, and they were still using the bottom, and they were looked really strong, especially Joe. Joe looked really good, working his way up to the top 5. 18 cars total in the streets, so really good car count in the streets too.
Yep, and another 18 cars to finish off the night in the IMCA Modifieds. We had Talon, actually both Seekersons on the front row, Talon and Corey Seekerson. Had a few cautions throughout that, and I'm a little fuzzy on this, but obviously you saw some of the happenings towards the end of the race. Corey Seekerson looked really good, and John Nord, who started 10th, got up to second very quick. And so he looked like he was going to be the car to beat.
Yeah, John looked like he was going to be the car to beat, and Corey was on the high side, and Corey used to run, Wasota late models, street stocks, Wasota modifieds back in the day, and has a lot of laps around Jamestown because he's from Jamestown and he lives now in Fargo. But Corey physically had worked that high side, but John was making time on the bottom. I mean, he was catching him quickly on the bottom, and they went side by side. But it was one of those instances to where cautions definitely, I think, helped Corey a little bit, cool the tires back down and get it back up and running because he kind of stretched out a little bit over John. John had to go to the high side as well and kind of was tracking him down. And it was pretty clean and green after that. Drivers were running the bottom, drivers were running the high side. Caden Gurmanson was actually running the bottom and making up a lot of time and moving forward too. I think he actually moved forward by 7 or 8 spots in that feature event as well. And one of our young drivers that is still very green when it comes to the IMCA modifieds. But the driver that was really cool to watch during that feature event was definitely kind of the duo of Jordan Sowers and Scott Gardner, because Scott was kind of tracking down Jordan, and Jordan was having a great run up in third. Jordan jumped a little bit too high in turns 1 and 2 when he went into the turn got into a little bit of the ledge over the berm, a little bit on turn number two, and got sideways and almost kind of like almost came to a little bit of a stop. And Scott, who's had nothing but terrible luck, it feels like, in that modified this year, literally just went pile drove him immediately over in turn two, and that happened with 2 laps to go. So basically, about 2 laps to go, that happened, and tough break for both those drivers because Jordan's car was pretty damaged, Scott's car was pretty damaged. It sounds like Scott's car they'll be able to get that working and fixed back up, and hopefully back on the track. Sounds like this weekend they'll be back out with it. But Jordan's car is ended up on the way down to Iowa to get on the frame rack to get framed up here before he probably gets that car back in a couple weeks and back on the track here hopefully in mid August to get back up and running. But Jordan and Scott, both two drivers that were having a good run, and both two drivers that have had terrible luck in the 2024 season. Jordan has gone through multiple motors already. Scott has had multiple wrecks already in the modified, most of them of his non-doing, and it's been a trying year for those two young drivers, which they'll fight through the adversity and hopefully come back and have really, really, really strong finishes to their 2024 season.
Yep, and even with the 2-lap shootout, Corey Seekerson was still pretty dominant out front, and so he held on to the win in the IMCA Modifieds, followed by John Nord in the 98. And I obviously John would probably be the only one who would know remotely the last time that Corey Seekerson won a race in Jamestown. It's been quite a while though.
It's been Corey's last win was, I believe, in a late model in Jamestown. I think he won in a late model at one point in Jamestown. I have to go back and look at my archives. But if that would have been the case, it would have been probably 2010, 2011 area, potentially. And a modified, it would have been a few years probably before that.
Okay. Yeah, it was quite a while, and so that was a popular win as well with the fans there as well. So overall, good night. Ended up being a long night with all the cautions, but very good night overall in Jamestown for their kids' night. And so to finish out the week real quick over at Sheyenne Speedway, which actually coincidentally they had a really quick show. Started at 6 o'clock and we were done by 8:45. So really nice to get done quick on a Sunday night. I actually made it back to Fargo just before 10 and almost could have caught the last race in Buffalo River had I swung on over, but we called it a day after that. They had the Red River Sprint Series there as well to finish out the weekend, and this time it was Ty Wilkie getting the win in that class. Very dominant and very quick out front, and they click off some pretty good laps there. They were running all over the track there as well in their feature race. And then we move on to the Midwest Modifieds, where the group was to be at the top. And I still don't know how Lucas Rodin started on the front row, but it's like you put Lucas Rodin on the front row, it's just like, what do you think's going to happen? So he was out front the entire way. He had a couple challenges early from Brendan Urbach and Nate Reinke, but ultimately it's going to take a lot to kind of shake the nightmare. And so he held on for the win in front of Brendan Urbach and Kylan Vargason with a good run in third. Moving on into the Legends. Now, this had an interesting finish. Colin Compson, winner from Saturday in Jamestown, had a really good start to that race. Started 10th, got up to the front real quick. Ty Wilkie was on the move from 5th as well. Was running the lowest side where the rest of the people were kind of running up top. They come to the white flag, and Ty, who was kind of alongside Colin, decides to throw a slider. Clears Colin, and Colin kind of struggled to kind of cut underneath them, and so almost kind of ran to the back of him. So it kind of looked like Ty didn't quite clear the slider, but I think Colin just kind of was struggling to get to the throttle to kind of cut underneath them. But it ended up being the racing move for Ty Wilkie as he came around and got to the checker flag first in front of Colin Compson and Ty Olson. Mixed reactions in the stands with that finish because not everyone thought that was a clean slider. I personally thought it was a clean slider. I'm not a driver, so I don't know exactly how it looked from the driver's seat, but looked clean from my book. So Ty Wilkie got 2 wins on the same night at Sheyenne Speedway. Then these stock cars came out. Battle up front between Calvin Kesselberg running low, which he likes to do, and Johnny Carter running up high. And Calvin Kesselberg put it best, thousands of laps beat 20. Because experience definitely came into play when you got Johnny Carter running at basically his home track, no matter what class it is. And so he kind of out-snookered Calvin by running the top groove and got around him at just the right point in the race. And he held on for the win in front of Calvin Kesselberg and Todd Carter in the 19 with another great run. It was also good to see Jared Carter out in his stock car. First time out for him, so he was getting some laps underneath his belt as well. Mini stocks, a little light field of cars, but we had the number 9 of Wayland Current, who always has a sharp looking car, kind of a little different looking than some of the other mini stocks. Cruised on to the feature win there. Basically no contest in that. And also to finish out the night, no contest in the hobby stocks with Tyler Hayne, which is quite impressive because that's his first feature win in hobby stock, 3 years running. So very big win for him. He was guarding him by like a third of a track, even with a late caution. That was not enough to keep up with Tyler Hayne. So big congrats out to him in the number 70 machine. So that was your recap from Sheyenne Speedway and from this weekend. A nice full weekend for once for the track packers. And so with that, we look to what's upcoming next. Oh, John, you got one more thing to add?
Yes, I have to actually say this before we, go to Dakota Dirt, but one of the best things I would say from this weekend, and Jessup, you would agree with me, is, Mason and Kayla were together at all 4 tracks that they went to this weekend, starting on Thursday. And I can't believe that their temptations of bringing rain only subsided to only one night, because the Wishick show, if it would have ran a little bit later, probably would have had some rain that would have hit it on Friday. But besides that, those two behaved themselves for once and kept everything in check. And hopefully going forward they can continue to do that. I mean, it could be the fact of the matter too that I threw candy at Kayla on Thursday and again on Saturday. So potentially maybe those had helped her calm her, hurricane skills down a little bit else. But the Tornado Mason was probably just, maybe in full force. If you think about it, it probably was in full force because there was a tornado south of Fargo on Saturday. So, Mason had left Fargo later in the afternoon on Saturday, so he probably left the weather there, which good for him. He left his tornado skills over there. But yeah, I mean, at least they finally decided to do it away from tracks they were attending this weekend.
Well, you see, John, that does sound logical, with the exception of there's an ultimate showdown on Friday night. There is evil versus good.
This is
And
true.
evil
I think
lost.
I was gonna say you mitigated those skills a little bit on Friday.
Oh, it was an epic kung fu battle down at the weigh scale between the Rainmakers and Dakota Dirt, and we all know how that ended because there was no rain the rest of the weekend.
Yeah.
Well,
What was nice too is that I think you balanced it out, Jessup, by doing all that weighing on the scale, because that kind of anytime that Kayla probably had any type of need or urge, you just step right back on the scale. So she had to do her job. So thank you so much.
Well, and because I lost that battle, I took my anger out on a raccoon on that way home from
Well,
Wishick. So
sacrifices have to be made sometimes, Mason.
This is true.
In this case, it was a raccoon in your radiator, potentially some other stuff.
yeah, I was told today it wasn't totally the radiator. So
Well, what happened now?
It's mainly just like the hoses and the cooler stuff in front of the radiator. So but I won't be having that vehicle for at least a week or 2 weeks. So
Well, I guess that means there's going to be less rainouts.
This is true.
What do we got coming next?
Hopefully. Although those two will be together here for sure, probably the next 2 weeks. So, when they were traveling together, watch out racetracks. But in short, race fans, if you want your one-stop shop for everything with results, weather forecasts, and much more from North Dakota and surrounding areas with our tracks in our area, you have to check out dakotadirt.org. Again, they are your one-stop shop for everything when it goes to racing results and much more around the state of North Dakota. Can't really say articles because they haven't done one in a while, but you but you physically have to go through and check them out. Again, they're your one-stop shop for everything results and much more from the state of North Dakota.
We had a harsh critic there. That's okay. That's okay. John's not wrong. There hasn't been many articles. Anyways, it's going to be a busy week coming up here for racing. It starts on Thursday as the Tri-County Speedway has a makeup night. They'll be basically running all their classes. Hopefully they get a few more Midwest mods, but keep the rest of the car counts the same. And then on to what is that noise?
I would
What
say I
noise?
hear something too.
Well, I didn't hear anything.
It's not me. It's John. Are you watching videos?
No,
That's
no,
Jessup's
actually, okay.
job.
No, I
And
have to
with
tell you
that
guys this.
caution, and that
Jessup,
means John,
we
you are
can't
now
hear you.
put
You're
to the
freezing.
bull crap. You're put to the pits, meaning I am the
It's
last
lagging so
remaining
bad,
sole
Mason, we didn't even see the caution flag.
survivor here.
I say the caution flag froze before our very eyes.
Yes. No, guys,
Am
I
I
was actually
freezing
looking.
again?
It
I was
was a little
actually
bit.
looking. I was looking at one thing here really quick because so did you guys see the
Trust
video
me,
of
look
like
at
that
how.
tornado that went through Chicago,
No.
like
No,
from
I
last
haven't
night?
seen that.
Yeah, they had some. It had popped up on my suggestion. I was like, oh, I gotta look at this really quick. So I was looking at it. I had to put the sound on to see it. But yeah, there was a couple images of a tornado that was going through Chicago last night in the metro. So yeah, so that was
Did it
kind of
hit the
scary.
immigration? Did it take out all the immigration camps?
So potentially,
Oh. Anyways, before we were rudely interrupted by John and having to send him back to the pits, Friday is going to be a busy night as the River City Speedway has the IRA 410 sprint cars in attendance. They will be doing a battle with the NOSA 410 and the King of the Wing 2 night special. And then the Dacotah Speedway has Hall of Fame night. I know John's been looking forward to seeing all of you Hall of Famers out there. And then it's going to be the first night back with the dirt back in place at the Red River Valley Speedway. So it's going to be interesting to see how the track holds up that first night back. So it's feasible. It's been done before, but it's always a hairy type of night as you never know to expect in those first couple laps for each track or each class, I mean. Moving on to Saturday, it's second night of the King of the Wing with the IRA 410 versus the NOSA 410 Outlaw Sprint Cars up at the River Cities. Devil's Lake it has I think it's the Golden Driller.
Golden
Is it the
Hammer?
Driller? Golden
Golden
Hammer
Hammer for Midwest
Midwest
Mods.
Mods
Yep.
this week. And then Estevan has the Riley Rainyard Night One Dirt Wars
Oh,
as
dang,
they
that's
have a
already
bunch.
happened. Wow.
I know it's already here. And then Jamestown will be having, I think it's the wingless sprints that night. So,
Yep.
oh,
Yep.
it's also half price beer night. So if you like beer, that is going to be a good spot for you to go.
Is Becca going to
Becca
be
would
there?
say no. Maybe she might be there actually. I don't know. All I know is Becca will say more beer. You know what you can get when you only have to pay half the price? More beer.
Got more beer, more water and soda for the race fan.
And moving on to Sunday, it looks to be a pretty quiet Sunday as it's night 2 of the Riley Raynard Dirt Wars night. Well, it is night 2, but they'll have the IMCA mods, IMCA stock cars, the sport mods, the IMCA hobbies, and the slingshots. And that's basically what it's looking like. I think I might be making a trip this week out east on Thursday night, as is the NOSA versus IRA 410 sprints over at the Norman County Speedway.
Are you going to join me over there?
I don't know. Do you want me to pick you up, or do we need to share like a 2-seated bicycle to get you over there?
Well, I should hopefully have a rental vehicle, but I mean we could definitely carpool. I would prefer that.
We'll see. We'll see how that goes.
Well, we'll see if I even go there because I could go to Renegade Speedway down in Canby on Thursday for their one show a year.
Oh,
It's an inside joke, but the Renegade Speedway is having their one race a year down in Canby, Minnesota.
isn't that being put on by Josh Long?
Well, I think he has a big part in it. It's the Casino Speedway crew that kind of goes
Yep.
over and puts it on
Yep.
like with all the track prep and everything, all the employees. So
I just saw the layout for the pits earlier today as I was looking through Facebook. Kind of interesting. Looks like a nice little track.
yeah, it's very similar in size to Casino Speedway, very tight, not a lot of banking, but the fans pack the stands for that night.
Really? Well, those are the best type of nights.
Yeah, so that's always a good night for them. I will not be there this year just because we got the King of the Wings like an hour away. I'm just like, this is my only chance to see the IRA. So I'm like, it's really tough to pass that up. And so
Plus, they
that
started putting limits on how far you can take rental cars, and Mason's already gone past it twice.
Yes.
well. Anyways, also on Thursday, KRA Speedway running another program and Victory Lane Speedway the first night of a double header, I believe. I think nope, they're just running on Thursday this week. I think that's the following week that they're racing. And
Do we have
so
a doubleheader next week? Seems kind of
it
odd to
says
do that.
doubleheader night 2 on Friday. So yeah,
Oh,
they are
really?
racing on Thursday.
Are they racing late models Friday?
I don't believe so because the NLRA late models will be in
Series.
Aberdeen Friday and Saturday.
Next week?
This week.
No, we're talking next week.
Oh, you are confusing me.
Following week.
Following week is the NLRA swing up through Victory.
Yes. You're getting ahead of me.
Oh, fine.
Throw me off. So Thursday, the 18th, KRA Speedway, Norman County Raceway with on all sprint car nights. So lightning sprints, 305s and 410s. So all sprint cars show there. Renegade Speedway and Victory Lane Speedway as well.
Now you'll laugh when I tell you this. I'm not a huge fan of all sprint car nights. It's just something there. I like seeing a little variety thrown in because it makes the uniqueness of the class. It's like, oh, this is what we normally see. And then boom, you see the wings come out and you're like, oh, that's really cool. Also, I'm not going to complain over it because I do like all the sprint car classes, but I don't know. I just like seeing a little variety in a night.
What I think too, especially with it being kind of a swing, I'm expecting a few more 305 sprints than we normally would see. So I'll be encouraged to see what the fields look like.
Does that involve the Red River sprint series?
I don't know if it's a Red River Sprint Series race necessarily, but since they're racing in Ada on Thursday and then Grand Forks on Friday and possibly on Saturday, that should get a good amount of travelers up here.
Mhm.
So we shall
I'm
see.
curious because if that, I wonder if that'll overlap with the Minnesota Sprint Series.
That one you're more familiar with, and I have no idea on that. So
I'll give you some updates here in a second.
all right, so Friday the 19th, we got a lot of racing going on. Brown County Speedway, the first night of a double header with this NRA late models, the Dakota Rumble, and the Dirt Race Central TV Street Stock Tour. So 2 jam-packed nights down in Aberdeen. Those are the only 2 classes running there. Fiesta City Speedway has the Timmy Imes Special. That's over 3,000 to win for Midwest Mods. So if you're a Midwest Modified driver, go check out that race. Very good payout down there. We also have the Princeton Speedway and Red Cedar Speedway over in Menominee running on the 19th. The 20th, already mentioned Brown County, we've got Cedar Lake. We have Madison Speedway, North Central Speedway, Ogilvy Raceway, and Viking Speedway with 1,000 to win modified special. And then in amongst all of this is the Silver Dollar Nationals taking place at Houston Speedway starting tomorrow on the 18th with Tri-State Late Model Series and IMCA Stock Cars, which I was so hoping to get down to, but since I don't have a car, I cannot make it. So unfortunately, no Houstons for me this week. Sunday the 21st, Bemidji Speedway, Buffalo River Speedway, Granite City Motor Park, I believe. I have to check. They have some big stuff going on the 21st. They have the Challenge Series on hand, so that should be a big show for them. And the Casino Speedway finishes off the weekend swing for the Dirt Race Central Street Stock Tour. So a lot of big races taking place outside of the state of North Dakota as well. Any details on the Minnesota Sprint Series, Jessup?
It is a negative. They only have 10 dates for the series, and it will not be any of the ones this weekend. However, the 3 nights of King of the Wing will be all Red River Sprint Series. So there should be a good following of 305 sprint cars coming along for that, I think.
I think last year around this weekend, we had like the national point leader at the time, Tyler Drucke, up here for that weekend, which right now the national point leader, I believe, is Shale Bade, and she's been doing really well this year.
I wonder why they didn't add the wingless sprints. That would be the ultimate sprint show.
Well,
Well,
they
they've
have the
had
our
wingless.
area.
They have the wingless on Friday.
Do they?
in
Yeah,
Grand
Friday
Forks.
in Grand
Oh,
Forks they have the
okay.
wingless, and then Jamestown has them on Saturday.
Oh, well, why wouldn't they do a Thursday to get a full weekend for them? I'm
It's a good
greedy.
question.
You're greedy.
I do know though that there is like Minnesota guys planning on coming over this weekend
Now, John,
to run that show.
is that the Western Renegades or the Northern Renegades?
Up in Grand Forks during the
Yeah.
IRA show, I believe it's the Western Renegades up there, and some of the Northern Renegades are planning on coming over. I don't know if it's a true Northern event, but those Northern guys are going to plan on coming over Saturday as well to Jamestown. So they're going to run both, kind of like a 2-day series a little bit.
Let us look. Da, da, da.
While
Their
you're looking at
schedule.
that, we went a little out of order for this show just to mainly accommodate Becca, to be honest. We have to give a shout out to our other sponsors, starting with Hot Sauce, Issac Hot Sauce Sondrol, and do a little brief Hot Sauce Hot Memory Rewind. Thank you so much, Isaac, for supporting us on the podcast. Unfortunately, his tour was up and down. He made the show, I believe, the first couple of nights. Didn't have super great finishes, but making the show was good in itself. And then, unfortunately, had the wreck in Southwest, which ended his week. And we'll see how long he's out of racing until he gets the new car back in order. But definitely, the Sondrol Snack Shack was a hopping place. Saw that they had a lot of good stuff throughout the week. I didn't get a chance to have any of their food this week, but hopefully one of these weeks as the season closes out, they'll have some goodies there. So thank you, Isaac, as always, for the support on the podcast. I got two, Jessup. What do you got for the Hot Sauce Hot Memory Rewind?
Well, you guys know the rules. We got to get the year for the photos. They're all supposedly from the same time frame. And this week we're going to be doing late models again because I like late models, and we're coming up on some big late model events coming up for us. So, John, I'm going to kick this one off with this guy.
Wait a second. Is that Jimmy Mars?
Mason, do you have a guess?
It's I don't think it's Scott Bloomquist because I don't think he was sponsored by Mohawk Salvage.
It's got a 28 on it.
Yeah, that would probably be my guess too. Either Jimmy Mars or Provenzino.
Well, one of you is right. That one is Mason. This is
That was Provenzino.
Yep, and you can kind of get a little hint of who it is with the Harry Hansen trailer in the back.
Oh, yep.
So good job, Mason. Coming up on our second one.
Well, that's Jimmy Mars.
There you go, John. I had to give you some redemption. I kind of figured the first one was kind of a trick. It's one of the rare non-all-white Jimmy Mars cars. Kind of cool. Coming up on to our last one for this week.
That's Terry Casey.
Well played, John. I'm impressed with that one.
Dang. Alrighty.
I never did guess the year.
What is the year, you guys?
2002?
John?
2001.
John is correct. 2001. Good job this week, you guys.
And guess what?
Serious question. Should I start going off the rails and picking people that I don't even know?
You missed the week where I stumped John on every single one of
I
them.
never got
What?
one right the week that Mason did it to me.
What
Because
did you do? What did
Jessup,
you have, Mason?
I had all
all
like
Nodak
Nodak guys.
guys from like the 90s. I didn't know Nodak guys that well in the
This
90s.
is from 1974. Who is this?
So So what Mason and I were doing is that just the weeks that you were gone, I was pulling out old photos that I had taken of race
Okay.
cars or had in my stash, and Mason was pulling out photos that he had of old race cars and pulling them out of his stash. So yeah, so we were quizzing each other as we as we were doing the episodes.
Yeah, and he was like super stumped, and I'm like, what the heck? These should be easy.
I know Mason's
Yeah.
like these are
Well,
easy. I'm like
Mason's
Mason, I didn't go back to Nodak in the 90s.
And
Oops.
then Mason gives you this should be easy. Do not expect anything
Mason
easy.
says,
I
You know
say,
how
Jessup,
Mason plays.
Jessup, do you recognize this one?
Hold on 1 second. I'm putting these away real quick. 52 it looks familiar.
I mean, John already said it, but I don't think you were paying attention, so this works perfectly.
No. Where do they race?
They race over in Alexandria and Fergus.
back then it was mostly
Sauer?
Alex.
Sauer? Gertis?
Currently races a Wasota Modified, A mod.
Yeah,
Same
so
number.
Sauer? I can't tell you off the top of my head.
Jason Tennis.
Oh, I've never seen him race.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, that's surprising.
See,
As far as I'm aware, I don't recall seeing him race. I could be wrong, but it does look familiar. Ooh,
What about this
11.
one?
let me see. Ooh, I've seen that car before too.
11. Is it a local guy, Mason?
What would you consider local?
Does he still race street stocks?
He does race street stocks.
I'm going to give you my best impersonation of someone right now. Hmm. Hmm.
So
Is that Becca?
No, it's
I will give you a
It's
hint.
it's
This
a fun impersonation.
this driver is a national champion.
It's not Frederick.
No, it is not a North Dakota driver either.
Oh, woo.
You definitely know who this, like, you probably know of this person.
And they race. Are they from Western North Minnesota?
Yeah, you could say Western Minnesota is where they're from. National
Central-
champion, races in the street stocks.
Still races street stocks?
Still races in street stock today.
Where do they call home?
Their home is now Starbuck, Minnesota.
Okay, John, I can't get you any more questions because Mason's playing hard to get.
Oh no, I'm giving this one to you, Justin. This is on you to figure out.
That's how John says he doesn't know. Oh, I know.
Mm,
John, are you stumped too?
mm, mm.
All right, John, who is it?
I'm not telling you. You gotta figure this one out.
What tracks
This-
do they race at, Mason?
Let's Jessup. He still is running that number to this day.
He
I don't
actually
follow
won
like you guys.
he actually won the night that you were in Fergus Falls this year.
Oh, actually, I don't even remember. I had one upset
Black.
Becca, and I wanted to get
Black
up.
number 11 street stock. They just had a baby.
Bake-off?
Yep, that is
Yes.
Becca.
Oh wow, that doesn't look like anything he'd race.
Nope, that was his first full body.
You know
Stock.
what? I'm just gonna go with this. That's a nice paint job. I
It's a nice
appreciate.
hobby stock. I agree.
Yep. And there you can see right there, like if you zoom all the way in,
It's
Dacotah.
Dacotah.
Yep.
Hold on, go back. It's Dacotah.
Yeah, very good.
Well, don't you have
Again.
another one, Mason? I thought you had one more. Usually
No,
I
I
You
have
only
do.
had two.
I don't
Do you have any, John?
So I could pull some out
Let's pull one out. One.
One.
Okay, just one.
As John's pulling out 18. Who's this guy? Who's this guy? Oh, how do you not know?
Who is it?
What number is that?
Is that 12? Oh, I have a guess. I think I know who it
That's
is,
a
actually.
12.
Is that at Dakota Speedway?
Yes.
I think I know who this is.
No, that's Jamestown.
Oh no, this is Dakota Speedway.
Old Dakota Speedway?
All Dakota Speedway.
Oh, that
Yep.
explains the trees in the background.
Well, you can still get trees in the background off of turns 3 and 4.
Let's
Yes.
see. At number 12, did they still race?
No.
Well, the Budweiser thing really tells me I can't think of his name.
What would be a hint that would help him out in this day and age?
I have a really good one, but it's not really appropriate for air.
Right.
Is it Barry Barnes?
Yes. Yes, it is.
That's pretty good. For never seeing him race.
See,
I
the
knew-
first one I pulled out was
I knew
Terry
Terry.
Barnes.
He had a big sponsorship with Budweiser, and he had a pretty nice hauler that had that all over the place. But well, I got one.
Very good. Nicely done.
Who's this?
Oh, that's an easy one.
Who is it, Mason?
Yeah, it is Daryl Bauer.
It is. It's when Darrell ran Superstocks back in 1998.
All right, so before we go too far, I would have never gotten that.
I'd figure you wouldn't, because I don't think he was racing when you moved over here.
Nope, not that I
No,
recall.
Darrell retired in 2013 was his last year in the mod, and then he ran one of Mueller's late models for a while.
Yep.
I was not.
So there you have it for our Hot Sauce Hot Memory Rewind for this week. White flag being displayed. We also got to give a shout out to Brody Carlsrud in the B1 IMCA stock car, who had a actually very good week on the Dakota Classic Modified Tour. Made all the shows, finished all the shows. I was looking to see, I think it might be on my race pass on where he ended up in points, because I don't remember seeing a top 10 finishing order on the stock cars and modifieds. But
Let us look.
yeah, definitely want to
Brody
give
was like
Brody-
7th, I think, in the
Yeah,
stock
he was
person.
top 10, I know for sure. And he had some, like, had a few solid runs throughout the tour.
Nice.
And ninth, you said?
Yep.
So great run for Brody on the tours. And hasn't been too busy with the podcast lately, just because he's gone off a week plus of racing. So be sure to check out his podcast, The Real Deal with B1. Stay up to date on all of his racing adventures with Brody Carlsrud B1 Racing. And thank you, buddy, for the support on the podcast. So Becca has already shared her wins of the week. Jessup, do you have a few wins ready yourself?
I have plenty of wins for myself.
Go ahead.
First.
Three right now.
Okay. I'll go with Jeremy Hare for picking up the Mama Vetter or the Mary Vetter Hobby Stock Tour Championship. That's a really cool deal. My second one is going to go to our buddy Brock Widener, picking up the IMCA Dakota Classic Modified Fantasy Week-Long Points Championship, as he defeated the one little yappy dog known as the Pomeranian, who is an elite fantasy picker until it comes to having to be at the track to get some points, which he gave us a severe lecturing all week. So tip of the cap to Brock, as he scored himself a Super Nationals viewing pass. So good, good for him. John, were you gonna jump in on there?
I did. I mean, I have to give Palms some hard, times here a little bit, because he said he was busy with work. Well, Palms, I was also extremely busy with work, but I still managed to get to the track to get attendance points, at least on a few shows. So, and a few of those were close to
If he would have just attended one.
Yes.
I think if he would have
And then
attended
that
one
I
or
would have
two,
pushed
he
him
might have been
over
able
Brock.
to steal that one. Yep.
Just
I'll
disappointing.
actually look at how many attendance points each race was worth, and then we'll see if he actually was going to win or not. But anyways, tip of the cap, Brock. I we like to joke that I'm called the real, and he's called the real deal. So, being his mentor, it's good to see my protege go out there and kick some butt. Don't roll
Yeah,
your eyes.
I roll
We're
my
back
eyes
to back
because you
champions.
would always make him go on the camera so you could make your picks in previous
Yeah,
years.
that's how you win. That's how you stay in contention for national points.
All righty.
My final win of the week, a little different one. It goes to stock car driver Rod Pickering. Now, Mason, do you know why this guy got my win of the week? And do you know
Uh,
which race this was?
I know which race this was because I always give Jessup grief on his paint scheme favorites, and Rod has a very interesting looking stock car, which I'm like, Jessup, this is so up your alley.
Hmm.
It's very plain. I like how plain it is. But that's not why he got it. He got it because, we put a lot of focus on the winning portion of it, and there's a group, a lot of these drivers, or the drivers that I view as, they go out there and they do their best every week, and they basically, as a fan, you may view it as they're not in contention a lot, but they're out there having fun and they're doing their best. In
Mhm.
this case, Rod drove a very smart heat race and avoided a bunch of big wrecks in his heat, and he made it into the redraw, and that I have to believe made his whole year. When I told him that, he looked at me. He's like, "I go, Rod, you're in," and he's like, "What?" And I'm like, "You've got redraw." No, there's no way I can have redraw. And then all of his buddies came running over, and it was a pretty cool deal. So, um, tip of the hat to him for being out there scrapping and swinging maybe above his level of competition. But I thought it was really cool that he could get up there in front of the huge Esteban crowd and get to do redraw. And that's a win for the little guys out there.
Yeah, and the fans they gave him a great round of applause when he was up there, and so that was a really cool moment. I do agree with that.
So I thought that was a really cool moment on the tour, and I like to look for other. We always get caught following the points and having to who wins each night, but if you take the time, there are a lot of cool little moments throughout the tour. If you just give yourself enough time to look around and see what's actually going on, and for him to get the redraw, I think that made his year. I could be wrong, but I think that's kind of a big one for a person who is, you know, supporting his local track.
I understand that same thing just because like doing redraw for like the Street Stock Tour and Midwest Mod Tour, sometimes like for a local or someone who may not be up at the front all the time, just to make the redraw is kind of like it's pretty cool. So
Yep.
definitely understand that. Very good set of wins. John, you want to go next?
Sure, I'll go next. So
Three.
the
Three, John. Three.
I know I've only got three. So I could have more, but I only have three. So one of the drivers that I have to give a kudos to that's been kind of on a hot streak lately has been Trey Hess in the street stocks. Trey's picked up some really big wins here recently. He picked up the Wall Memorial race for the Minnesota Street Stocks up at the Victory Lane Speedway over in Winnipeg. Picked up another future win here this past weekend over at the Devil's Lake Speedway. And he's been racing a lot with Braden Brower. So he's been picking up quite a few feature wins, even with Brower there, who's your national points leader currently in your Minnesota Street Stock. So Trey's been kind of hot lately. So good to see Trey running really well in that kind of that Peterson memorial paint scheme is what I'm going to kind of call it, with Julie Strong there on the car with the ribbons this year. So congratulations to Trey. So the next win that I have to give out is definitely over to Corey Dickerson, as it was nice to see him back in victory lane. Corey took off several years from racing, and now he's got his kids in the racing area as well, both in Legends and also back into IMCA Modifieds. And it was nice to see Corey back up to tip-top form. After he had that terrible wreck at the Stampede last year, if you guys remember that, he
Yeah.
barrel rolled that Legend on the front straightaway in the Conceed race and ended up, luckily was not hurt, but that car was destroyed. Got him modified for this year, has been working through some of the kind of the learning curve here on the IMC modifieds compared to what it was when he was in the car, just about a decade ago. And now picking up a win. So congratulations to Corey. Corey had a very, very nice weekend over there too. And the final win that I have to give out here for this past weekend was a very good late model feature event that happened here on this past weekend. And the winner of that late model event was Sheyenne Speedway. So I have to give Shane some big kudos out here as he picked up a big win over at the Hibbing Raceway. That was on Friday, the 12th of July, and he held off the likes of Daryl Nelson as well as Tyler Peterson, two of one of the best late model drivers that are in the late model division who have quite a few laps now in late models. Tyler's still pretty much kind of in that, sophomore season in his late model campaign, but he, no slouch with the big wins he won last year with the 100 he won the Stampede, he won the national championship, the Rookie of the Year title. And Shane held him off over there at Hibbings for a big payday as part of the memorial race over there as well. So congratulations to Dan Sobrowski, who has eclipsed the 900 win column. That's a lot of wins. And
That
that's
is a
an
lot.
accomplishment in its own right across the board. And Shane's one of the nicest drivers out there if you talk to him. So congratulations to Shane on a big win in the late model. And can't wait to watch him here in the next couple of months as we get closer to invitational season, as I'm sure he'll have all three cars out. A threat to win in all three cars in some of those invitationals.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see if he can pull off the triple duty on some of those big races. I'm really surprised you left a guy that was kind of on my list, John. So I feel like I should give him a shout out here.
I did it on purpose. I knew you were going for it, and I didn't want to take it.
Well, I had three others that were kind of off the grid, but I have to give a shout out to Johnny Carter. I mean, he's made a lot of bank over the last few weeks. So 2,500 win over at McLean County Speedway last week. He won in back-to-back nights over the KRA Speedway and the Fiesta City Speedway, which were both 1,300 to win, and then finished runner-up in Madison on Saturday, which I believe was 600 for second.
I think so too, yeah. Somewhere in there. Yep.
And, of course, winning the race up in Cheyenne, which probably wasn't that much, but that's a lot of money in the span of like a week and a half.
Well, and that's 4 wins in the last 5 races for him. So Johnny's gotten hot in the stock car division as he never had a win before he had the win over in McLean last week Friday. So nice to see him get really, really, really hot kind of in the stock cars because he's one of the best street stock drivers that were out there too from those Soda Street Stock days, a national champion in 2019. One of our local guys that we get to watch quite a bit.
Yep. So now I got to pick and choose for my second and third one. I'll give a shout out to Matt Johnson in the 17J with Soda Superstock. He got his first career feature win down at Miller Central this past Saturday. He's been knocking on the door of his first feature win. And when you got the likes of, Trevor Nelson and like local hot shoe Brad Kopecky trying to be in front of those guys, it's hard to get wins. And so nice to see him knock down that first win as well. And then my third win, I'm going to give a shout out to Justin Fremming, the number 32 with Soda Midwest Modified. He won over at I-94. Now you're probably thinking like, he races a 33X with Soda Modified. What's the deal? Well, for those that don't know, the 32 Midwest Modified is actually driven by Sean Olson. And he actually was in a work accident and was injured. And so in the time that he's away from the race car, Justin Fremming is going to be stepping in and racing that wherever they go, whether it's Alex or Fergus or wherever it may be. First night in the car, he goes out and wins at I-94, which in front of a very stacked field. It's always a stacked field of Midwest Modified. And so I certainly didn't expect that. I mean, Justin's an accomplished Soda Midwest Modified racer, but jumping into a friend's car and just going out there and ending up in victory lane, pretty dang good feat first night out in the car. So those are my 3 wins of the week. Any honorable mentions that you want to give a quick shout out to, or any closing thoughts as we start to wrap up the show?
No.
Well, I definitely have to give a shout out to Zach Reinke too. He won a lot this past weekend. He had 3 in a row. before Jamestown, and he had a very, very, very nice weekend, and that was Soda Midwest Modified.
Yeah, also got to give a shout out to Aiden Paul in the 2017 IMCA Hobby Stock. He got his first career feature win up in McLean County. Dirk Miller with his second win in the sport mods.
Yep.
The other guy I had on my wins was Trevor Anderson. Got a late model win. That's his first win in over 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
So he was very emotional with Victor laying down in Casino Speedway. So yeah, just a couple more that I wanted to give a quick shout out to. Any other closing thoughts, Jessup? What besides Thursday? What's your plan for racing this weekend?
Stop by at the Dacotah Speedway for a cup of coffee and get Becca set up, and then we are one of the teams I play softball with is playing in a tournament in Mandan, which starts our first game's 8 o'clock Friday night, and we play at least one or two more games into Friday night after that. And then Saturday, depending on what time we play, it might be a 6 o'clock game. And if we lose out right away, I might try to sneak over to Jamestown. But outside of that, it's a real quiet week for me. Maybe no, there's nothing going on Sunday.
No, because McLean's off
Not
until the following
much.
Sunday, I believe.
Yeah,
Yeah, McLean's off until the day after the Governor's Cup.
it might be only a one and a half night week for me.
Sometimes those are nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, and with there's some stuff taking place over the next month and a half where it's going to be real busy for me, and I'm not going to be able to hit a lot of racing. I'm going to try to sneak in a bunch of racing where I can, but um, due to circumstances out of my control, I'm going to get pretty limited on, especially seeing our friends over in Jamestown. My Saturdays for the next month are kind of locked down for a bit. And it also depends on a few other situations. If they play out right, maybe I can sneak over a bit more than I think I can, but um, just see how things shake down before the little one shows up. So
I will say too,
limited.
if you're not able to sneak over to Jamestown, because I'm sure Brian was taken aback when his co-flag person put on a sweatshirt halfway through the night in the flag stand.
When I was about
Yeah,
roasting up in the tower.
It's cold up there. You don't have any real protection from anything. You're getting beat down by the sun and pelted by rocks and dust and dirt, and then all of a sudden, when the sun just falls behind the grandstand, it's ice cold, and then it never fails. The wind always picks up. We're abused up there.
Well, I was there to save the day.
It's hard life. So the other thing I want to say, Mason, too, is that in the next week, we'll touch on it next week, but late models are back at Dacotah Speedway coming up here for the Governor's Cup. So can't wait for that, because Governor's Cup weekend is not this weekend, but next weekend. So that's going to be the 26th and 27th of July. So that'll be a fun time over at the Dacotah Speedway with late models back. First time in several years over there. And then the other thing I have to plug on here too is that we have 2 drivers so far for the Stampede Shakedown. We're looking for more here for the physical late model class. If you have not been to the Stock Car Stampede, which they announced classes today over in Jamestown for the Stampede classes will be the same as last year, so be sure to attend that. And if you have not attended in the last 5 years or ever in a late model at the Stampede, hit us up, Stampede Shakedown on Facebook, and we can get you involved in the program. And there's a lot of rookie late model drivers out there that have been over the Stampede and other classes, drivers from far that have thought about coming over before, come over this year, and we can get you as part of the program and get you some incentives. So, yep. So we'll get that all done here as part of the Stampede on September 20th and 21st over in Jamestown. So, and that's about all the big events upcoming. As this weekend, we'll have some racing action coming up here too, with just a regular normal night over in Mandan on Friday. And then we'll start up with some great racing action as the weekend progresses, with a lot of other stuff in Mandan on Friday. We also have makeup features from our rain out
I
that we
forgot.
had as part of that one too. So be sure
Mods and
to
hobby
check that out.
stuffs.
because Mods and Hobby Stocks will be having makeup features to start the night over there on Friday. So it'll be a quick night on Friday. We'll have a very quick intermission on Friday as well, and we'll be able to keep the show rolling here as part of our show on Friday night over at the Dacotah Speedway. And buy your Drive to Survive shirts because that's coming up here in August.
Oh yeah, yep.
Excellent. Besides Thursday, I'll be in South Dakota all weekend. So
Really?
hopefully no speeding
you're going
tickets.
And that means that the weather will go with him.
Now,
Hopefully not.
Mason, you know you need to bring your car insurance with you, even in a rental car.
I do know that, yes.
A lot of people don't know that.
Don't worry. I'm thinking ahead.
John is still very. You're planning for a ticket. Smart.
Well, South Dakota and I don't really get along. I don't get tickets. I just get warnings, and for some reason, the police seem to always find my vehicle. Don't know why. But
It's probably because
anyways,
you're speeding.
no, I don't speed. It's usually because
Why
I
do
have
I
like
get?
I have a taillight
Why
that
is it
goes
that?
out.
Why is it that you give me a hard time about my driving when you're the one getting pulled over? Maybe John's
All the
mom is
time.
onto
One,
something about your driving.
I've had a taillight go out twice in South Dakota, and both times it's just like immediately the police are just like, "You have a taillight on." I'm like, "I know that. It literally just happened like 5 minutes ago." It's like they're hawks.
Wow.
Well,
Anyways,
with that being said, good luck, Mason. May the odds ever be in your favor.
thank you. That'll do it for episode 18 of season 3 for the Track Packers podcast. As always, be sure to like, share, and comment. Follow our Facebook page to see where we end up throughout the weeks ahead. Thank you to our sponsors, Hitch Harness with Tyler Hall, The Real Deal with B1 Brody Carlsrud, and Issac Hot Sauce Sondrol. Hope that everyone has had a nice July to start things off. A lot of big races coming up, and we hope to see you out there packing the track.